Now admit it, if you were alive in the 90s, you know her music. She performed for presidents here and abroad, but what can only be called a movement almost didn't happen.
The teacher that was like, you have a really good voice. I would love for you to come try out for the musical that we have. I'm like, first of all, I didn't even know I could sing, but okay, let's roll.
That one break changed everything. But even as the world believed, she still had to be convinced.
People were like, no, you have hooks within hooks. You have a sound that's recognizable. But when you're the singer, you're on the inside looking out. You're not understanding what people hear.
Still touring and changing the industry, 90s icon and dance music superstar CeCe Peniston shares her journey now on The Pulse.
You made your choice and now I'm voicing my opinion to you.
Once again, welcome back to The Pulse. You know what we do here. We're talking to people who have great stories, names and faces that you recognize for any number of reasons. And today, it is a musical star icon. You know you were dancing to her music in the clubs. CeCe Peniston joins us on The Pulse. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. I was telling you before we started, I was muted because we were in here still dancing to a lot of your music. And you said go with it.
Hey, go with it. That's the most fun. Look, I do that with other people's music. I'm at home like, hey.
Tell us about your break. Like, what got you started? You've been in this since you were like 11.
You know what? Yeah, I started off doing like musicals. I didn't even know I could sing. I was actually in class. You know, I was taking music class. And the teacher that was like, you have a really good voice. I would love for you to come try out for the musical that we have. I'm like, first of all, I didn't even know I could sing. But okay, let's roll. So I went and tried out, got the lead part. And then that kind of started me feeling that energy of being on stage. So that's how it pretty much started from there.
You were still fairly young, like teens-ish, when you got the break to kind of get out on the stage.
Yeah, I was 21 when I got like my big break, but I was doing shows all around Arizona and people started to know me from doing like, they would pay me a little $50, $100. Hey, can you come out sing for the little weekend event? I'm like, yeah, let's get it popping. So we would I would do that and make my little school money, my little shoe money. You know what I mean? When you're a kid, you're buying clothes and different stuff. So that's how that kind of all happened. People got to know me, which led to the background vocals of me getting in the studio, which led to me getting my deal for $5.
Okay, so then the background vocals were first. Names that we would be familiar with, or you just were kind of paying dues at that point?
So Marvelous JC, who works also with Quad City DJs, and then Overweight Pooch. Pooch was doing, she was rapping around Arizona, and I did like 3 of her songs. I did the Merry Arizona event too. Like they had a compilation record, Christmas album. And then when I did that, they were like, oh, we love what you do. Why don't you do your own project? I said, all right, I would love to. I have this song. Not sure if you're gonna like it, but here it goes. And it was finally.
So you had that song, you had that back pocket, you know, the song that we're still singing this many years later. That was all you.
I can't say everything was me. I wrote the melody and I wrote the lyrics, and RK and Felipe did the original mix, the first mix that we ever presented. Because I know some people think that the first mix that we presented was a don't, right?
Yeah.
Our mix, don't, right?
Okay.
And I'm a little animated. Forgive me.
That's all right. Do you? That's what we would expect. So you come out with that. That's not all you, because you're humble and sharing. And we'll get to that because there is a larger fight with credit, you know, for who's helping and participating and whatever. So we will talk about that in just a second. But you get that big break. It's out there. And was it like that? Did it increase like that? Because I feel like finally got out there and then there were a series of these hits and then you were just everywhere.
Unexplainable and something I had never experienced, because it was like all of a sudden people were like, hey, Finally's out there. We love Finally. So 6 weeks in, Finally was on the charts, and Finally was on the charts for 33 weeks. And I was like, wow. So in between that being on the charts that way, there were people want to hear more, you got to go in. So within 3 months in between me touring and traveling, they got the album done. And that's how the album came about. From finally the single, they didn't know what to do with it at first. The R&B department finally loved it. And, because, you know, one of them songs, it's like, we're not sure if it's R&B or if it's dance. It has a nice bass line. So then we went from there and did the album. That's how everything has continued to this day.
And it was a time where the kind of songs were catchy and people were in the clubs, and it was just a fun time to be out there doing that. And I wonder why, you know, if you think that's why it's had such longevity, you know, because it's just the fun, good-natured, we dance to it, and, you know, good memories for people.
I feel like that was just one of those moments where it was like God said, you have something different, which at the time, I didn't understand what that different was. People were like, no, you have hooks within hooks. You have a sound that's recognizable. But when you're the singer, you're on the inside looking out. You're not understanding what people hear. And so when that happened, it was like, all of a sudden, it was this energy when I'd go on stage, right? And all of a sudden I'd sing, yeah, yeah. They'd be like singing it with me. And I'm sitting here, I'm putting my out like, oh, they know it. Okay.
Next on The Pulse, it was the type of meteoric rise we all hear about. And CeCe Peniston, she loved it all.
We traveled from city to city. You almost had to lay your clothes out so you could get to the next city. You know, if you went out somewhere and had a meet and greet, it was like, okay, get a shower, gotta roll up, y'all, next city. It was exciting. It was fun.
You were requested for the Clinton inaugural. You performed as apartheid is breaking down, you know, in South Africa. Was it as big living it as it seemed to all of us on the outside?
We traveled from city to city. You almost had to lay your clothes out so you could get to the next city. You know, if you went out somewhere and had a meet and greet, it was like, okay, get a shower, gotta roll up, y'all, next city. It was exciting. It was fun. It was like these big audiences. You know, it was being on the road, being in a different city. I'd go to radio stations. I'd be like, they were like, so where'd you come from yesterday? And I'm like, because I was so tired. I'm like, so tired, and I didn't want to mess it up. So it was a great period of time. Magical, I could say.
Gavin Rossdale from Bush was just here, and Jazzy Jeff talking about their experiences with Jeff and Will Smith. Like, they were just on with us. And both of them told stories about just this kind of huge exposure and success on the outside. But Jazzy Jeff said he had $500 in his pocket when he had millions of sales. And I don't know if that was your experience, but that's been part of your battle since then, you know, as it relates to the kind of changing industry.
You know what? I would say this. Finally had come out in 91. It was making noise hand over foot. The album had come out. I was still living in an apartment until 94. At that point, I didn't understand about how all that worked because I was young. I was a kid. I was 21. I didn't understand about saving your money and putting it towards this. And you know, you get that information later, I think, and you don't understand how, like, you can make this amount, but there's expenses on this end. So yeah, I've gone through periods when I didn't have, and you know what? Having those moments where I didn't have made me a greater person. That doesn't mean I like them, but it taught me how to be a survivor. So yeah, I've had negative accounts, embarrassing bank statements, but I knew this. I didn't do it myself.
You've been performing fairly consistently throughout that whole process, yes?
You know what? There was probably about a 3-year period, I would say, in between probably 97, maybe 2000-ish, that I wasn't performing as much. And that was strange. But since that point, I would say I definitely haven't had a time and place where I haven't performed.
Like, you're on tour again. You're coming to Philadelphia and really city wineries across the country. You did. I'm on your social media, so I saw some of the other tours and some of the people you're performing with. That seems like a lot of fun. Do you still love it?
I do still love it. I just don't love what happens around it, but I don't have to. But as long as I give memories to people that share the same sentiment as me, and I do my job, what I'm supposed to do. But for me, when I sing, it's not a job, it's a joy. It's the other things.
Okay. What does that mean? I don't like what goes around it.
with people trying to take advantage or trying to get over or not paying you what you're deserving of, or which I spoke to on other platforms about artists getting royalties that they should have. Like, it's different from getting royalties that are given to you and that what you deserve, what you have earned. And so that's the part where I'm like, why don't you just give me what I deserve? I'll love it more. I think at a certain point, like you said about the 30 years, and people always know this about me, they always want to opt you out as an artist to let younger artists move in. And I'm like, but y'all won't let us sit in peace. So when you don't let us sit in peace, then we have to keep going and we have to make our presence known.
Coming up, it was such a fairy tale for CeCe Peniston that the reality of the business, that hit hard.
I'm receiving benefits, but not that which I am deserving.
Before I came in the studio, we were looking at one of those streaming networks that has you search your name and you see 101 million streams. You see 1 point however many million in a month. You see all of that going on. And then it was not that long ago that you released a royalties statement that had a lot of people shaking their head going, wait, how does 100 million streams translate to like $18,000? Why'd you decide to take on this fight?
Because God put me here to help the people after me. It's not about me. It's not about me saying, hey, look at me. It's not always about, I don't think they understand that when I post some things, it's not about, hey, look what I've done. It's, hey, I see it.
Okay.
I see it. Like, it's more like I'm in the know. I understand what I have going on. And as far as statements, I've seen 70 cents on a statement.
How? Like, how does that happen?
That's a good question. I think if you and I could figure that out together, that would be amazing.
So it actually has become a thing. So you spoke out on it, but artists throwing names out. Taylor Swift spoke out on it. Like, other people have spoken out on how people kind of take their music. Your music is in commercials worldwide. And what you're saying is, because of technicalities or what have you, you're not receiving benefits from some of that or from enough of that.
I'm receiving benefits, but not that which I am deserving of. And this is why I'm funny about people telling people to spell your name right. Do not let people spell your name wrong. We only own ourselves in this whole wide world. And when you allow people to spell your name wrong, which I just was like, they would be like, oh, it's just a mistake. No, it's not. Because I've seen it on multiple statements. It's not a mistake. It's on purpose, which is why I yell and tell other artists, don't let anyone spell your name wrong.
I just think it's intriguing for people who are not in the industry how things like that, oh, I'm sorry, I just misspelled it. But then when it comes down to royalties, they're marking it based on the way that it was spelled. So that could cost you significant amounts of money. Later
on in life, I realized, after going through multiple pieces of paperwork, I said, in COVID, when we were sitting around, right, I said, oh, I'm going to become a businesswoman. I'm going to become a better businesswoman. I'm going to look around. I'm going to go through paperwork. I'm going to understand. I said, we don't have nothing else to do but to become greater. So that's what I did. That's why when people see me on my page, I'm giving you a nugget. I'm trying to help you not to go through the same experience as me.
So we see you on your page, you're giving us a nugget. When we see you on stage, we're seeing that you're still doing it. So you're on tour. You'll be in Philadelphia February 21st, the City Winery. But this is national, so a lot of different people will see it. What are we going to see when you come on tour? City Winery is a cool, kind of an intimate setting.
I absolutely love doing live music. I love doing live band because it doesn't tell me when to end the music. I can do what I want to do. I'm like, no, hold on a minute, band. Let's do this for a few more minutes, because sometimes the crowd just may be in a moment and I just let them do that. I'm in the moment and I love it. Definitely, like Inside I Cried, I usually do like a little medley type thing. I try to change the medley up so it doesn't get old. And people say, I saw that last time, right? Definitely all the hits. I work with different bands. So sometimes what you hear vocally or what you hear musically will change because of the cadence is different, the energy is different.
Ever occur to you that now, there are satellite channels dedicated to your music and all of these different things? Did you ever think, even then, when it was so big and you're doing so many things, that it would continue to be, and people would be focusing on and loving you and all of those other groups that you're talking about, 30 years later?
I had no idea. I really didn't. I was like, oh, it's going to end. I need to make sure I get my degree just in case I got to get another job in case something don't work out. They were like, girl, if you don't go sit down somewhere and your song, you ain't going nowhere. Like my friends. And I finally got to a place where I felt really comfortable. And I said to myself, I'm not going back to something different. I'm going to do my best. Like, I feel like you can choose to have a youthful spirit. I can't change age, but I can change having a youthful spirit and being young in my mind, but not too young where I'm trying too hard, but youthful enough that people receive who I am.
Next on The Pulse, use your voice for good is a big part of our show, but also a guiding principle of CeCe Peniston's life.
And I'm one of those people where I see a need, I give. I don't ask sometimes. I'm like, oh, they need this. I'm like, hey, I'm just sending this over. I don't feel like you have to ask what is already explained and understood.
Keep on walking. You just go on. We ain't talking no more.
What's the best way that people who love your music and have over the years, uncertain about what happens when you stream it or download it, or what's the best way that we can be supportive of you, and other acts and groups like you, and know that you're getting supported?
I put up the post about me doing, my album came out the other day. It was the anniversary of my album. Mm-hmm. Well, on that night, I went and re-recorded some of my songs. I feel like, that is the best way of artists can redo their songs over, or they can even do remixes of what they have currently. Not to unsupport what you had currently, but to re-support something new that you may have as an artist that gives you independence.
So look for the re-records, the remixes, and most of that new stuff. It's not even really new, like new take on stuff, but familiar to us. We can feel confident that that's yours and you're being appropriately recognized.
Absolutely. And I had to get like they had to go per line. That's not the right cadence. You got to do hair again. Like, I really, when I went in, they were like, because you get used to singing it in different ways as, from the first recording of it. And it's like, they're like, no. You got to, I'm like, I got to do the dead the second time. They were like, you got to record it just the same.
City Winery, February 21st. Before I go into kind of closing statements, so this is part of, at least in Philly, it's part of a Black History Month Still I Rise kind of celebration. So there are several artists, and your performances are raising funds as well as kind of performing during Black History Month. Is that kind of charity, philanthropic, meaningful performance something that matters to you?
Absolutely. I definitely have had my own 501(c)(3). I've had the CeCe Peniston Youth Foundation. I had the Lifting Others to Succeed Foundation. And right now I'm just resetting all my businesses due to, changing directions. And so I always am out in the community, and I'm one of those people where I see a need, I give. I don't ask sometimes. I'm like, oh, they need this. I'm like, hey, I'm just sending this over. I don't feel like you have to ask what is already explained and understood. It's my pleasure and my joy to give whatever God gives me back, because I don't really own it in the first place.
That is the perfect lead-in to how we end every show on The Pulse. And as the concept of the theme of this show is use your voice for good. It means different things to different people. You started talking about some of your charitable concerns. The concept of use your voice for good, what does that mean to you?
That means whatever you have, you share it with the world, because like I said, you don't own it anyway. It's like there's so much in the world and so much in need for people to be fulfilled. And it's not always monetary needs. Sometimes you're fulfilling the spiritual side. and you're creating a voice for somebody else that may not be yours to go out in the world and be able to, be an example for the world. So, people just need to continue to support each other, because we all need a shoulder sometime, and just sometime someone to hear us out. So just be that person.
As we wrap up, I want to tell people that before we started the show, myself and the producers said to you, you don't have a stand or a tripod or something. You're going to hold your phone for this interview. And you said, no, I'm good. I got this. I'm strong like that. Kudos to you, because you held that phone for an entire 30-minute interview unflinching.
Thank you, because I already know you were waiting to catch. If I saw that right.
Nah, we wouldn't do that to you. Appreciate all you're doing. Look forward to your continued success.
I appreciate you, and I love your show too. I love your energy. So thanks again for having me on, and blessings to you.
CeCe Peniston, don't act like I'm the only one who has the memories of dancing to the music and still smiles when you hear it to this day. I appreciate her spending some time with us. Hope you enjoyed it, and remind you that you can listen to the entire interview all places where podcasts are available. And I leave you, as I always do, reminding you that whenever you can, use your voice for good, and have a good one.